All right, hello class. We're going to look at the Loft tool today. So let me find the right tab up top here. There we go. Again, I'm in 5.5b. We're going to learn about the Loft tool. And here is kind of our preview of what the final product will look like. And so really all it is a block with this triangular shape cut out of it. But you can see that 3D profile starts out small at the back and kind of flares out or gets bigger as it goes towards the front. So we can't do that with just a regular extrude. We need to use a command for this called Loft. Pardon me. So the directions tell us to start off fairly simple with a cube that's 2.5 inches by 1.5 inches and extruded to a depth of 1.5. Right, so I'm going to go into Inventor, start a new part file, start a new sketch inside of there, and I'll draw my rectangle. And again, 2.5 by 1.5. All right, I'm going to change some software here eventually. Okay, we'll zoom extents, just make sure I got the right dimensions, 2.5, 1.5. I'm going to finish that sketch and extrude. And again, 1.5 inches, so 1.5. Right now, this is kind of like when we did the sweep command. We need to come up with two sketches first. We want to sketch that big triangle on one face, the small triangle on another face, and then we'll use the Loft tool. Here's our Loft tool to join those together. So I'm going to right click on this face, say new sketch, and then I want to go back to my PLTW page to make sure I'm doing this sketch correct. All right, so one face is going to get this big triangle. It's offset 250 thou or 1/4 inch from the top corners, and the bottom point again offset 1/4 or 250 thou from the bottom edge. All right, then my small rectangle is offset 1/2 inch from the top edge or 500 thou, and 3/4 of an inch or 750 thousandths from the bottom edge. All right, so let's go ahead and sketch those two out. I'm going to do the large triangle first, and I'm just going to use the line tool for this. So I'm trying to inference off that top line. You can see I've got that dotted line coming down the center of that object. That tells me it's constrained to the midpoint, which I want. Right? And then I've got to make sure to close in my triangle. So I'm dragging a third line across the top here to make that closed profile. And so now I'm going to dimension from the corner of the object to the corner of the triangle. Right, that's 250 thou. And now I'm going to come over here with my dimension tool, and I'm going to go from here to here. Okay, now I could type the dimension in. Since I want all three of these to be the same, I'm just going to go click on my original dimension. You can see it enters in this dimension D4. That's the fourth dimension I made. And it automatically snaps my dimension to that size. Right, so I'm going to do the same thing off the bottom here. I'll just go click on that original dimension, and then I can check it off. And now for this drawing, we're not going to change the size, but in future drawings, I could come in here and say, oh, I didn't want 250 thou, I wanted 260 thou. And if I change one dimension, you can see it changes all three of them. And so that might be a handy little trick for you to keep in mind going forward. I'm going to change this back to the correct dimension now. Okay, so we'll finish one sketch. I'm going to spin around to the back side. We'll start a sketch on this face. And this time I'm going to draw out this triangle, 1/2 inch from the edges, 3/4 from the bottom. And I'll do that using the line tool again. So I'm going to try and inference off my midpoint. All right, I will come over here, and then again, I want to make sure I drag out that third line to make a closed profile. So now we can dimension. I'm going to dimension here. I'll use that same trick again. I'll just click on the dimension I want to copy. And then remember, this bottom is a different dimension. This was 750 thousandths of an inch. Ooh, now that did not constrain to my midpoint. So I need to come in here and take the vertical constraint, and I'm going to constrain this point vertically to the midpoint on that line. All right, that looks more symmetrical. The other thing I think happened here, oh, I didn't use my inferences very well. You can see I got a gap between the top of my object and the top of that line. So I'm going to use my collinear constraint to make these two lie on the same line. Right now I've got a fully constrained drawing. Right, and that's, again, that engineering thing. You got to check your drawings as you're making them. Make sure it looks correct versus the dimension drawings on my PLTW. So here comes the loft part. The sketching was probably the most difficult. I want to make sure I've got the cut option selected here, and then I need to pick my profiles. So sometimes it's easier to come over to the model bar and click the profiles that I want to take and cut out. Right? And you can see here it's giving me a preview. I like what I'm seeing, so I'll click OK. And there I've got that lofted shape drawn through there where I've got a little different profile from each side. So we can only do shapes like this where the extrusion, or the cutaway, if you will, flares in or out using that loft tool. Right, so at this point, go ahead and save what you've got to a safe spot. Make sure I come over and check it off. And if you have questions, definitely get your hand up in the air, ask me or a neighbor for some assistance. We'll try that again.